Hey guys, you Rocky Starr. Hey Rocky, welcome to the channel.
Hey James, thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Good questions to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
When did you start wrestling?
Started wrestling in would have been the summer of 2012, so coming up on 10 years actually. Yeah, that's a scary thought.
Who trained you?
Who trained me? So I trained at Pro Wrestling Ulster in Belfast. So it was a couple of different people that ran the training back then. So it was JDP, Tucker, Tron, and Damien Corvin. So it was good. It was good to learn from those different guys because they each had a different style, So I got to learn sort of a bit from each and
Yeah.
become sort of more well-rounded as a result. So it was definitely a good way to learn.
What is your move?
My moves, I have a move called Starstruck, which is like a Sister Abigail into a DDT. That'll be
Yeah.
my finisher. Usually when I hit that, it's game over.
What's your counter?
My character
Yeah.
is like sort of an arrogant rock and roll frontman. So I like to go to a lot of concerts. As you can see, there's a couple of posters behind me.
Yeah.
So I've sort of taken a lot from the people that I've seen perform on stage. Just to have that sort of arrogance and confidence and swagger. Guys like Axl Rose.
Yeah.
Um, people like that. That just have that air of confidence and arrogance. I think it's pretty cool. So I
Yeah.
like to take a lot from that.
What is your favorite match of yours?
My favorite match.
Yes.
Um, Wow, it's hard to choose. There have been so many. There was one that we did. It was myself versus Tucker at Culture
Yeah.
Night in Belfast from a couple of years ago. So Culture Night is like this big like arts festival that takes over the whole city centre of Belfast. So it's all like open air and there's all the street performers and stuff like that. And we
Yeah.
we were wrestling as part of that. And yeah, so it was open air in front of St Anne's Cathedral in Belfast. So it was just hundreds and hundreds of people all around us. And the thing I loved about that match was that it wasn't a wrestling crowd. It was just normal people that were just happened to
Yeah.
be sort of walking around, and so we had to work really hard to sort of get them on side because usually when you're performing in front of a wrestling crowd, they already know the crack. They know how it goes.
Yeah.
But for us, we had to really start from scratch with these people, and really really tell the story and really set the scene before we moved on to anything else. And we
Yeah.
did that, and the response that we got for that match was something I'm really really proud of. So myself and Tucker still talk about it to this day, probably
Yeah.
5 years later. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that match.
What do you wrestle mostly?
Where do I wrestle?
Yes.
I wrestle mostly for Titanic Wrestling in Belfast. Yeah, so that started 2019 after Pro Wrestling Ulster went away. So that kind of took over from PW in the Belfast scene. So I've been involved with those guys since day one. Start I take some classes at their training school as well. So yeah, definitely most involved with Titanic in Belfast.
Yeah. That's all. Thank you for your time, Lucky. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure, James. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.